Harley-Davidson dealers are quietly cutting prices on 7 models, and some of the discounts are far deeper than buyers might expect. With new model years arriving and dealers paying to keep unsold bikes on their floors, holding inventory is becoming expensive. Today, we're counting down 7 Harleys currently seeing major price cuts, with number 1 carrying a discount that could make even loyal Harley buyers take notice. Number 7. Harley-Davidson Lowrider ST. The Lowrider ST was pitched as Harley's answer to the sport touring crowd, a cruiser with enough attitude for the street and enough range for a weekend trip. It runs the Milwaukee 8 117 engine, putting out roughly 105 horsepower and 126 pound-feet of torque, wrapped in a package with a small fly screen, hard saddlebags, and premium Showa suspension components borrowed from the Pan America. The dash even carries over Harley's newer TFT display, giving it tech most cruisers in this price bracket simply don't offer. On the spec sheet, it reads like the perfect middle ground between a stripped-down cruiser and a full tourer. Here's the strange part. Riders who actually bought one kept running into the same complaint, and it wasn't power or styling, it was the scale. The Lowrider ST tips the scale at nearly 700 pounds wet, and that mass sits high and forward compared to Harley's other softail models. At a stoplight or in a parking lot, riders describe it as noticeably top-heavy for a bike marketed as an agile street machine. Reviewers who praised the engine and the brakes still flagged the same issue in nearly every write-up. This is not the light, flickable cruiser the ST badge implies. Then there's the price. At launch, the Lowrider ST started north of $21,000, putting it well above comparable cruisers from Indian and well into touring bike territory, without touring bike wind protection or storage capacity. Buyers shopping in that price bracket increasingly compared it to the Indian Sport Chief, which offers more standard equipment for similar money, or even Harley's own Street Glide when buyers realize a small fly screen and hard bags don't add up to real touring comfort. Add in the fact that the small saddlebags barely fit a half-face helmet each, and riders looking for genuine weekend trip storage feel misled by the marketing. Dealers report the Lowrider ST moving slowest of any softail variant, and inventory has been sitting long enough that some stores are now discounting well past MSRP just to free up floor space. A few dealers have started bundling free accessory packages, extended saddlebags, or a touring seat, just to make the bike feel like it delivers on the promise it was sold on. Some stores have gone further, throwing in free service for the first year or knocking a full percentage point off financing rates just to get buyers to sign before the next shipment of softails arrives and pushes current year units further back in the lot. Picture the next bike on this list, a full touring machine that Harley built to chase a market it had never seriously competed in before, and it is running into a problem that has nothing to do with power. Now here's another interesting detail. Number 6. Harley-Davidson Road Glide ST. The Road Glide ST was built to go head-to-head with sport touring machines from BMW and Ducati, using the same Revolution Max 117 platform found in the Pan America, but wrapped in Harley's signature shark nose fairing. It makes around 121 horsepower, which is genuinely quick for a bagger, and Harley stripped weight from the frame and bodywork, shaving roughly 40 pounds versus the standard Road Glide to sharpen the handling. On paper, this is the fastest, most track-capable bagger Harley has ever built. Honest limitation: the electronics haven't kept pace with the hardware. Owners across forums and Reddit threads report the same handful of issues: infotainment screens freezing mid-ride, Bluetooth connections dropping without warning, and occasional false warning lights on the dash cluster. None of these are safety critical, but for a bike priced at nearly $30,000, buyers expect the tech to simply work, and Harley's touchscreen system has a reputation for glitches that BMW's comparable multi-strata fighting systems don't share. Several owners have reported needing a dealer software update within the first few thousand miles just to stabilize the infotainment stack, which is not the kind of maintenance a rider expects to schedule on a brand new flagship bagger. There's also a comfort trade-off most riders don't expect going in. To get that sportier handling, Harley firmed up the suspension and dropped some of the plushness that made older Road Glides famous for eating up interstate miles. Riders doing genuine long-haul touring, the exact customer this bike is supposed to attract, report more fatigue on multi-day rides compared to the standard Road Glide. The seat foam is also firmer than the Road Glide Specials, a deliberate choice to match the sportier positioning, but it means riders planning 6 and 8-hour days in the saddle notice the difference by lunch. It's a bike trying to be two things at once, and depending on who you ask, it doesn't fully commit to either. Dealers are sitting on Road Glide ST units longer than expected, and with the standard Road Glide Special available for several $1,000s less and offering a smoother ride, plenty of buyers are choosing the cheaper, more comfortable option instead. That's left ST inventory stacking up, and price cuts are starting to show up in dealer listings nationwide, with some stores throwing in free extended warranties just to close the gap between what the bike costs and what buyers feel it's actually worth. A handful of dealerships have even started offering free suspension retuning at the point of sale, essentially undoing part of the factory setup just to make the ST ride closer to what long-distance buyers actually want. Try this test yourself. Search dealer inventory in your state for the Fat Bob 114 and count how many are still sitting unsold from 2 model years ago. The next bike on our list has a problem that only shows up after you've owned it for a while. That wasn't an isolated example. Number 5. Harley-Davidson Fat Bob 114. The Fat Bob has always been Harley's muscle cruiser answer to the street fighter crowd. Aggressive styling, dual round headlights, and fat tires front and rear. The 114 version brought serious torque to the table, 118 pound-feet from the Milwaukee 8 engine, more than enough grunt to make it feel like a genuine performance cruiser rather than a cosmetic exercise. Inverted forks and dual disc brakes up front round out a spec sheet that looks aggressive from every angle. The problem doesn't show up on a test ride around the block. It shows up after a few hundred miles. The Fat Bob's suspension is tuned firm to match its aggressive look, and owners consistently report that ride quality gets harsh on anything but smooth pavement. Potholes and expansion joints transmit straight into the seat and handlebars in a way that reviewers routinely call out as the bike's biggest weakness. For a machine priced above $19,000, riders expect at least Harley's usual level of long ride comfort, and the Fat Bob simply doesn't deliver it.
Before we continue, there's a reason most of this is knowledge a dealership would rather bill you for by the hour. The complete field archive goes where this channel can't. The full playbook, uncut. The habits that keep a bike on the road for decades, and the thousands they save you. The code on your screen gets you in. Scan it, and let's get back to the bike.
The low minimalist seat that looks so good in photos also offers almost no lower back support, which becomes a real issue past the 1-hour mark. Fuel range compounds the issue. With a 4.7-gallon tank and real-world fuel economy in the high 30s to low 40s per gallon, riders are looking at roughly 150 to 180 miles before needing to stop, noticeably shorter than competitors like the Indian Scout Rogue or Triumph's Speed Twin lineup, both of which carry closer to a gallon more fuel capacity. Combine a stiff ride with frequent gas stops, and the Fat Bob starts to feel like a bike built for photos more than for actual weekend riding. Riders who bought it expecting a genuine street brawler often end up swapping the stock shocks for aftermarket units within the first year, an extra cost most buyers didn't budget for. Dealers who stocked up on Fat Bobs expecting the aggressive styling to move units quickly are now finding themselves with aging inventory, and several have begun bundling accessory packages or knocking thousands off sticker price just to clear space for 2026 stock. A few larger dealer groups have started pairing leftover Fat Bobs with discounted aftermarket seat and shock upgrades as a package deal, essentially fixing the comfort problem for the buyer at the point of sale rather than losing the sale entirely. Forget the horsepower numbers for a second, because the next bike on this list isn't struggling because of what's under the tank. It's struggling because of who is actually allowed to enjoy riding it. The same principle applies here. Number 4. Harley-Davidson Tri-Glide Ultra. The Tri-Glide is Harley's 3-wheeled touring platform, built for riders who want the comfort and stability of a trike without giving up Harley's signature look and sound. It runs the Milwaukee 8 114, has a reverse gear for easier parking, and comes loaded with the same infotainment and comfort features as the Ultra Limited, including heated grips, a full stereo system, and generous locking storage across the trunk and saddlebags. For an aging rider base that wants to keep touring without balancing a two-wheeled bike, it fills a real need. And that's exactly the trap dealers fell into. The Tri-Glide appeals to an extremely narrow slice of Harley's customer base, almost exclusively older riders transitioning away from two wheels, plus a small segment of riders with balance or mobility limitations. Younger buyers overwhelmingly skip it, and even within its target demographic, many riders hold off as long as physically possible before switching, since the trike carries a certain stigma among longtime cruiser riders who see it as an admission that two-wheel riding days are over. That narrow window means dealers can't count on steady turnover the way they can with a Street Glide or Fat Boy. Then there's the price tag. The Tri-Glide Ultra starts above $36,000, and fully optioned units routinely clear $40,000, putting it in direct competition with Can-Am's Spider lineup, which offers more modern tech, a lower entry price, and a wider range of trims for riders shopping the three-wheel category specifically rather than defaulting to Harley out of brand loyalty. Insurance costs on trikes also tend to run higher in some states due to how they're classified, an extra expense many first-time trike buyers don't discover until after they've already signed the paperwork. Dealers report that Tri-Glide units, once ordered, can sit for 6 months or longer before finding a buyer, tying up serious floor plan capital on a single unit that costs more than most of the cars on the lot next door. Here's the mini reveal most shoppers never think to check. Because Tri-Glides sit so long and depreciate the moment they're titled, dealers are now offering some of the steepest per-unit discounts on this entire list. In some cases, 10 to 15% off sticker, just to get one off the books before the next model year arrives. Now picture a completely different kind of problem, one that has nothing to do with price or weight, and everything to do with how hot the bike actually runs underneath you. Now compare that with this. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Sportster S. The Sportster S was Harley's boldest reinvention of its most iconic nameplate in decades. Gone was the air-cooled 883 or 1200 most riders grew up on, replaced by the liquid-cooled Revolution Max 1250T engine borrowed from the Pan America, producing 121 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque. It's genuinely one of the quickest bikes Harley has ever sold, capable of low 3-second 0 to 60 runs that put it in sport bike territory. And it backs that up with a fully adjustable suspension setup and cornering ABS that no traditional Sportster ever offered. Here's the direct challenge every prospective buyer should ask before signing. How hot does your right leg get in stop-and-go traffic? Because that's the Sportster S's most consistent, most reported complaint. The rear cylinder sits close to the rider's right leg, and in city riding or summer heat, owners across forums describe noticeable, sometimes uncomfortable warmth radiating off the engine casing during idle and low-speed riding. Harley added heat shielding in later production runs, but the complaint hasn't disappeared. It's just been reduced, and riders in hot weather states like Arizona and Texas still flag it as a deal-breaker for daily commuting. Beyond the heat, longtime Sportster owners have been vocal about what got left behind. The old air-cooled 883 and 1200 models were famous for being cheap to maintain, easy to customize, and mechanically simple enough for a home garage rebuild. The Revolution Max engine is a completely different animal, more powerful, but far more complex, with service costs and diagnostic requirements closer to the Pan America than to a traditional entry-level Sportster. Valve service intervals also require specialized tools most independent shops don't stock yet, pushing owners back to the dealer for maintenance that used to be a weekend garage job. At a starting price over $16,000, the Sportster S also costs significantly more than the old Iron 883 it effectively replaced, alienating exactly the budget-conscious, DIY-minded buyer that made Sportsters Harley's best-selling nameplate for decades. The result is a bike that impresses reviewers on a spec sheet and a dyno chart, but has struggled to win over the traditional Sportster crowd. The Sportster name carried decades of familiarity, simplicity, and relatively accessible pricing, while the new Sportster S moved the formula much further toward performance and technology. That shift left dealers with inventory that often skews toward performance-curious buyers, rather than the high-volume entry-level market the traditional Sportster once dominated. The bike can be fast and technically impressive, while still being a difficult sell to someone who simply wants the approachable, inexpensive Harley they remember. Discounts and finance incentives on Sportster S units have therefore become increasingly common as dealers try to widen the potential buyer pool beyond the relatively small niche of riders chasing sport bike-level acceleration in a cruiser body. The next bike on this list takes everything expensive about Harley and multiplies it, and the story behind why it's not selling might surprise you. And with that in mind, let's continue. Number 2. Harley-Davidson CVO Road Glide. Harley's custom vehicle operations line exists to showcase the absolute peak of what the factory can build: premium paint, the most powerful engine in the lineup, and technology you won't find anywhere else in the catalog. The CVO Road Glide runs the Milwaukee 8 121, Harley's largest production V-twin, delivering roughly 139 pound-feet of torque, paired with a Rockford Fosgate Stage 2 audio system and multi-stage paint jobs that can take weeks to apply, sometimes involving a dozen or more individual layers of clear coat and custom graphics. Forget the paint job for a second and look at the number that actually matters to dealers. This bike starts north of $42,000, and depending on paint scheme and options, some configurations push past $46,000. That places it above the price of a new midsize car for a machine that shares roughly 90% of its core hardware with the standard Road Glide Special, which starts closer to $30,000. Riders comparing the two side by side increasingly ask the same question dealers hate hearing: is the extra paint and audio system really worth $12,000 to $16,000 more? The honest limitation here is resale. CVO models are notorious in the used market for depreciating faster than standard trims relative to their original price, because the premium is tied to exclusivity and cosmetics rather than mechanical upgrades that hold long-term value. A CVO Road Glide can lose a disproportionate chunk of its purchase price within the first 2 or 3 years, far outpacing the depreciation curve of a standard Road Glide Special over the same period. Buyers shopping used Harleys know this, which pushes savvy shoppers towards standard Road Glides and away from CVO trims, further shrinking the pool of buyers dealers can sell to, both new and used. With finance rates still elevated and buyers increasingly price-sensitive across the touring segment, CVO Road Glides have become one of the slowest-moving SKUs on dealer lots nationwide, and price cuts on remaining 2025 and early 2026 units are already showing up at dealerships trying to clear space before the next CVO drop arrives, and makes last year's paint scheme look outdated overnight. And that brings us to number 1. The bike that combines nearly every problem on this list into a single showroom nightmare. Here's another piece of the puzzle. Number 1. Harley-Davidson CVO Ultra Limited. If the CVO Road Glide represents Harley pushing the limits of what riders will pay, the CVO Ultra Limited is Harley testing exactly where that limit breaks. It's the brand's full touring flagship, loaded with the Milwaukee 8 121 engine, a 13-inch touchscreen infotainment display, adaptive ride height, premium audio, heated and cooled seats, and hand-finished paint that can involve dozens of individual layers and weeks of dedicated shop time before the bike ever reaches a showroom floor. And here is the number that stops most buyers cold. Fully optioned, the CVO Ultra Limited routinely crosses $50,000, occasionally pushing past $52,000 depending on paint and accessory selection. That is more than double the price of a standard Ultra Limited, which starts closer to $28,000 and offers nearly identical touring capability, storage, and comfort. The gap between the two isn't performance, it's badge, paint, and a marginally larger touchscreen, along with an audio system upgrade that most riders admit they can barely appreciate at highway speed under a full-face helmet. Dealers describe the CVO Ultra Limited as one of the hardest bikes in the entire lineup to move off the floor, not because it's a bad motorcycle, but because the buyer pool willing to spend $50,000 on a motorcycle is vanishingly small, and that pool shrinks further when a nearly identical standard model sits $20,000 cheaper on the same showroom floor. Financing a bike at this price point also pushes monthly payments into territory that rivals a luxury car loan, easily 3 to 4 times the monthly payment of a standard Ultra Limited, which cuts out a huge segment of Harley's traditional customer base entirely. Even riders who could technically afford it on paper often balk at committing that much monthly cash flow to a motorcycle. Then there's the depreciation curve. Like other CVO models, the Ultra Limited loses value fast once titled, and used buyers know it, which means even Harley's most loyal repeat customers, the ones who might otherwise consider a CVO as a special splurge, are increasingly waiting for used units to hit the market at a fraction of MSRP rather than buying new. Some used CVO Ultra Limiteds with only a few thousand miles on the odometer have shown up on the resale market at discounts steep enough to make new buyers feel like they overpaid the moment they ride off the lot. That behavior alone has been enough to leave new CVO Ultra Limited units sitting on dealer floors for extended stretches, and it's why we're seeing some of the deepest discounts of the entire model year on this exact bike right now, with a handful of dealers reportedly cutting 5 figures off sticker just to get one sold before the next model year lands. If this helped you make better decisions, subscribe and stay tuned.